Hi folks, here's McDonald. See you folks tomorrow. So, she joins part of the learning encounter. She's too fine a player. She'll solve the case. Her strength. My game plan shifts orientation and serve really well. So, we'll see. Envision you're a tournament manager. You've got IGA, Swiatek, Coco Gauff, Aryna Sabalenka, the massive names in ladies tennis, all booked for your event. Your court allotments are set. Your schedule is locked. Your ticket costs are adjusted to the ranking system that steered the sport for 50 years. And then one phone call alters everything. Not from a former champion, not from a Grand Slam victor, from a 20-year-old from the Philippines ranked 42nd in the world who hasn't won a major and hasn't even cracked the top 30 yet. And suddenly, every premise you built your tournament around starts to break. That is the situation playing out right now across the entire WTA circuit. And the name at the center of it is Eala. A current tour professional, someone who has spent over a decade competing in the same locker rooms, eating in the same player lounges, grinding through the same qualifying draws as every elite name in the sport, just went on record and said without hesitation that if she were running a tournament, she would reorganize her entire event around one single player, not around a world number one, around Eala. And what makes that statement so vibrant? What makes it land so differently than any hype from a fan account or a Filipino media outlet is that it came from a peer, someone with zero commercial incentive to say it, someone who competes against these players and knows exactly what normal looks like. And she looked at what Eala is doing and said, "This is not normal." So let's actually dig into what's happening because the full picture is more layered and more fascinating than any single headline can capture. 2 facts anchor everything you're about to hear. First, Eala enters the 2026 Italian Open, ranked number 42 in the world with a career high of 29, reached just 6 weeks ago in March. Her first-round opponent in Rome is Magdalena Fręch of Poland. And that match is tomorrow. Second, in January 2026, the WTA sanctioned the first-ever professional women's tennis tournament held on Philippine soil at WTA 125 event called the Philippine Women's Open. The WTA itself called the inaugural edition a resounding success. Those 2 facts, the ranking trajectory and the new country on the tour map, are the entire argument. Because here's the tension that's been driving tennis insiders absolutely crazy. Professional tennis has always operated on one core assumption. Your ranking determines your value. It determines which court you play on, where you sit in the draw, how your match gets scheduled, how tickets around your name get priced. Ranking equals relevance. That's been gospel for over 5 decades. Eala is dismantling that assumption in real time at every single tournament she walks into, and the sport's own infrastructure is visibly struggling to keep up. Go back to January, the Australian Open. Tennis Australia system looked at its newest main draw, debutante, ranked 49 at the time, playing her first ever Grand Slam main draw match and did exactly what it was designed to do. It assigned her to court 6, a sensible outer court, a by-the-numbers decision. Nobody questioned it. And then the crowd arrived. Melbourne's Filipino community is one of the largest Filipino expat populations anywhere outside the Philippines itself. They had been waiting for this moment for years, and Court 6 was built for hundreds of people, not thousands. Security was overwhelmed before the match even started. Fans who couldn't get in stood outside and watched on whatever screens they could find. And inside the court when play was actually happening, not between sets, not between games, but during live points, the chair umpire had to address the crowd for noise. Read that again. During live points, the level of atmosphere you associate with a Wimbledon final, not a first-round match on an outer court in January. Tennis Australia issued a public statement. The machine had failed publicly on global cameras because it had no algorithm for Eala. The match result almost became a footnote. What the tennis world remembered was the crowd. What they talked about the next morning was the gap, the enormous, undeniable gap between where the ranking system said she should be and where the real world was already placing her. Ben Rothenberg was there. If you follow professional tennis closely, you know that name. Former New York Times tennis correspondent, author of a newsletter called Bounces, widely considered one of the most credible English-language voices covering the sport. He doesn't do hot takes. His whole professional identity is built on getting things right. And the morning after that Court 6 scene, He posted something that stopped the tennis internet cold. He said he was genuinely wondering whether Eala was already the most popular player in women's tennis. Then he went further. He wrote a full newsletter piece and he answered his own question. The title was direct. Eala is the most popular player in tennis right now. Not the most popular emerging player. Not the most popular player from Southeast Asia. The most popular player in tennis. Full stop. Present tense. From a journalist whose reputation depends on precision. That's not a fan talking. That's a verdict. 3 weeks later, the story moved to Abu Dhabi. The Mubadala Abu Dhabi Open, a WTA 500 event in early February. Eala was playing on a wildcard not seeded, not listed among the tournament's headline names. She filled the stadium anyway, and the match she played there is the kind of match that becomes part of a player's mythology. She went down 4-0 in the third set, then 5-2 down, a match point came, she saved it. She won 7-6 in the third. And when she walked to the microphone for her on-court interview, still breathing hard, the crowd still roaring behind her, she said something that cut straight through all the noise. She said, "Selling out stadiums is insane." 4 words. No spin, no media training, no carefully crafted athlete persona. Just a 20-year-old who looked out at a full arena and was genuinely still surprised that she fills rooms like that. And that authenticity, that real unfiltered disbelief at her own story is more powerful than anything a marketing team could manufacture. And it was in the days after Abu Dhabi that Daria Seville posted the video that sent the tennis world into overdrive. Seville isn't a retired legend offering soft nostalgic praise from a commentary booth. She's an active WTA professional. Former world number 21. Former Australian women's number 1. She has spent over a decade watching what real crowds at real tournaments look like. She posted an Instagram reel reacting to the Abu Dhabi footage, and what she said was extraordinary. She said that Eala sells out stadiums whether she's playing singles or doubles. She said you can literally see in the crowd numbers whether Alex is playing or not. And then she said the thing that nobody expected. If she were a tournament director, she would do anything to have Eala at her event. She would put her on the schedule every single day, singles and doubles, because people come to watch Alex and then they stay for more tennis. Think about what that actually means. A fellow professional, someone who uses a different racket brand, who isn't Filipino, who competes in these same draws and has her own career to worry about, watched Eala's crowds and publicly declared she would reorganize an entire WTA event around one player who hasn't won a major. That isn't admiration. That's a professional read from someone who knows the landscape intimately and is telling you something categorically unusual is happening. By March, the pattern had become impossible to explain away. At Indian Wells, the BNP Paribas Open, one of the biggest combined events on tour, Eala was reportedly drawing practice session crowds that outpaced those watching Carlos Alcaraz and Coco Gauff. Not bigger than one of them, bigger than both of them combined. At practice, Alcaraz and Gauff are arguably the 2 biggest box office names in tennis right now. That's the company Eala is keeping in the real world regardless of what the ranking list says. She told Front Office Sports after her opening win there that she never expected a fan base like this, that it's an incredible privilege that not everyone gets to experience something like it. And there's something in the way she talks about it, still grateful, still slightly disoriented by the scale of it, that makes the whole thing feel more real, not less. Then came the Forbes piece in March. Jean-Christophe Verbourg, the global sports marketing director for Babolat, the racket brand that sponsors Eala, the same brand that once sponsored Lina, sat down for an interview and chose one specific word to describe what he's watching unfold. Crazy. Now, why does that matter? Because Verbourg isn't a journalist speculating from the outside. He is the man who was inside Babolat's boardroom when Lina won the 2011 French Open, and over 116 million people in China watched the final. He watched Lina turn a country with almost no tennis culture into the WTA's single largest market. He watched her generate endorsement deals worth $24 million a year. He watched her make China a tennis country, not just a tennis audience. And he looked at Eala from a nation of 115 million people at home and 10 million more scattered across diaspora communities, already filling stadiums from Melbourne to Abu Dhabi to Indian Wells, and reached for the same word he probably reached for back then. Crazy. That's not hype. That's pattern recognition from someone who has watched this exact thing happen before. The Italian Open starts tomorrow. Foro Italico in Rome. And this is where the story gets genuinely complicated because Eala's clay court season in 2026 has been rough. At Miami in late March, she lost to Machakova in straight sets. At Stuttgart, she fell to Leylah Fernandez. At Madrid on April 24th, she lost to Mira Andreeva 6-2, 6-1. In Linz, she led Yelena Ostapenko 5-1 in the second set and watched it slip away. 4 consecutive losses on clay, and the scorelines don't flatter. This is the version of the story that doesn't get told as often in the highlight reels, but it's the version that matters if you want to understand what Rome and Roland Garros actually mean, because clay is not giving her what the hardcourts did. And the Italian Open is clay. And Roland Garros, the only Grand Slam left that can dramatically reshape her ranking before the seeding cutoff, is also clay. Greg Ruzetsky, former world number 4, current analyst, put it plainly. He said, "She's too good a player. She'll figure it out." And what he appreciates is her resilience. That's not empty optimism. That's an assessment of character. And the behavioral evidence backs it up. After the Madrid loss, Eala didn't retreat. She went straight back to the Rafa Nadal Academy in Mallorca and worked. She entered Rome not as a wild card, not as a lucky loser, but as WTA number 42, who earned her spot in the main draw. The seeding threshold matters more right now than it ever has before. Breaking into the top 32 at a Grand Slam means a seeded position, and a seeded position means the draw machinery, the same machinery that put her on court 6 in Melbourne, would finally have to structurally acknowledge what the crowds have known since January. She belongs on the main stage. Not because the fans demand it, though they do, but because the ranking system would have to put her there. So when you watch her walk onto the clay of the Foro Italico tomorrow, understand what's actually at stake. This isn't just a first-round match. It's the beginning of a stretch that will define whether the momentum of the hardcourt season carries into the sport's most prestigious surface. It's a test of whether the player who filled stadiums on pure electricity can now back it up with clay court wins against opponents who are not going to be moved by how many people are watching. And there's a bigger picture underneath all of it. The WTA now has a Philippine stop. The first one in history. A country that barely registered on the tour's geography a few years ago now has a sanctioned professional event on its soil. And it exists because of one 20-year-old from Quezon City. Every young Filipino girl who picks up a racket over the next decade will have a professional tournament at home. Not just inspiration infrastructure, a real pathway. That's not a small thing. That's the Li Na comparison done right. It's not about the style of play or the Grand Slam dreams. It's about the map. Li Na didn't just win in China. She made tennis a viable ambition for a generation of Chinese kids who had never seen themselves reflected in the sport. Eala is doing the same thing, and she hasn't even won a major yet. The Babolat executive sees it. The tournament directors see it. The WTA communications team sees it using language like perfect balance to describe the challenge of managing her media demands alongside her development, which is the most diplomatic possible way of saying, "We know we have something extraordinary here, and we are trying very hard not to burn it out." What makes this story genuinely historic rather than simply exciting is the range of voices saying it. Not Filipino fans, though their passion is completely legitimate. A former Australian number 1 with nothing to gain. The most respected tennis journalist working in English. A global sports marketing executive who has personally witnessed this exact phenomenon unfold before. An Austrian tournament director talking about Eala's commercial weight before the first ball was struck. The WTA's own senior staff, a Pepperdine marketing professor, a New York Times tennis writer. That's not an echo chamber. That's a convergence. And convergence